So our next session is with Almira, and so she is head of engineering and productivity engineering in Telstra, and she have a very vast experience about IT. And of course, we are going to interview her also later to know her story and how she started her journey. So over to you, Almira.
Thank you, Navi. So Priya set the bar very, very high. So I wish I went first, but yeah. So I'll try to share my screen. Let me see if I can share. Okay, where is it? Share. Which one? Which one?
There'll be a screen share.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you see my screen?
Yep, we can see.
Okay, so my name is Elmira Hassanzadeh, and I'm head of engineering and productivity at Telstra. So I joined Telstra about a year ago, less than a year, 10, 11 months. I joined Telstra. And today I'm going to talk to you about shifting from developer to product engineer, if that's something that you want to do or interested. So Navi just mentioned that she's going to ask about my career journey. So I'll keep this one very short and keep it for the interview section. But I just need this to get to the point. So when I started as obviously as a developer. It was about 15, 16 years ago. In that time, full stack developer was a thing, so it was very easy. I mean, the building software wasn't as complicated as today. You basically, if you know Spring, if you knew Java, if you knew Hibernate and Struts, you were basically full stack developer. You spin up a Tomcat or JBoss, deployed your application, and voila, you were a full stack developer. But right now it's getting more and more kind of complex building and producing software. So the skill set has become a bit more dedicated and niche and specific. I was there for 5 years in that company, and I started as a junior engineer all the way through to senior engineer, full stack developer. At the same time, I was doing my bachelor's degree and my master's degree at the same time. And as soon as I finished my master's, me and some of my friends started a consulting company. It was about 13 years ago, and digital transformation was starting to take off. So the companies were going through the digital transformation automation process for their business processes. And we just saw the gap in the market and started a consulting company. And we won two tenders from insurance companies for their digital transformation. So there is an arrow here. That was the time that I started shifting from developer to product engineer. And I'll get to why that was the reason that I shifted from developer to product engineer. Obviously, back then I was in Iran. And after 6 years of running my own business, I decided to migrate and come to Australia. There was many reasons, political, social, and as well as economical reason that basically forced me to leave my country and come here. When I came here, obviously I couldn't be a CTO anymore. So I didn't know anyone. I had no connections, no reputation, didn't know anyone. But because I was running my own business and I have been developer for the whole period, I was hands-on and developer engineer for the whole period. I started as a senior consultant in a consulting company and then moved to managing consultant after a few years. I was a managing consultant at Deloitte. And then after Deloitte, I joined MeBank as the API ecosystems manager or head of API. And this is where I came to know Navi and Priya. So I was there for about 1.5 years. I don't go to the details. And then I joined ANZ Bank as a technology product leader. I made myself redundant after 7 months. And I moved to Telstra as head of the engineering and productivity. So as I mentioned, I shifted to be product engineer, then developer engineer when I started running my own business. And here is the reason. So we engineers are known with different names, and like front-end developer, back-end developer, DevOps, cloud engineer, tester, QA engineer, etc. Right? This is very skill focused. The way that we identify ourselves is very skill focused. Whatever that we're good at it, if we're good at front-end development, if we're passionate about front-end development, we're known as a front-end developer. This is good in a sense that it helps us to find a job. You can't apply for a job as a product engineer. What's your skill? What's the value that you're going to add to the company? So you have to identify yourself as one of these. Probably I missed a few, there are many. But product engineer doesn't mean that you are not a software engineer. Product engineer is not a rocket science. It's basically software engineer plus some other attributes. So you need to be a software engineer first in order to be a product engineer. But what is the additional attributes that you need to have to be a product engineer? Basically, a product engineer is the advocate for the product. This person also helps to shape the product, actively contributes in any product discussions, and basically has a strong voice in the way that product is being built, ideated, prototyped, deployed, and basically consumed by the customers. So, but these are very generic terms. That's why that I want to, sorry, I just minimized this. Yeah. So those are very generic terms. So how we actually be software engineer and product engineer. And I just try to compare what software engineer focuses and what product engineer focuses on top of the focuses that software engineer has. So software engineer basically picks up the stories from backlog, executes them. The way that we see the software engineer is that there's a black box, it's a robot, the person is a robot, has a certain input and certain output, right? This is developer, software engineer. But the product engineer actually involves in the feature and product ideation. And the reason for that is that every company is becoming a technology company. And because we have an advantage point, we know what's the latest technology, and therefore we can see the opportunities that comes with the technology that product owner or product manager, which doesn't have a technical background, probably could miss. One of the very well-known examples is Netflix, right? So Netflix was a company that was in the DVD and movie renting business. Basically, you could rent DVDs and movies from them, and that was their business. But at some point, when the streaming technology came in, it was the engineers that discovered that they can actually change the business model. It wasn't a product owner, it wasn't a product manager, because they didn't know anything about streaming. It was engineers that came up, they came up that they can actually leverage streaming and create a new business model, not just create a new way to expose API, but a new business model. And that's our advantage point. Because we're very close to the technology, we can see the opportunities that brings to the product or brings to the organization before anyone else. And traditionally, it is very well known that say that product owner is responsible for why and what, but engineers are responsible for how. That is correct. We know how to do stuff. We know how to implement, but we also need to be curious about the why, right? We need to understand why a feature is being built. It's not about criticizing or arguing with the product owner. It's about being curious about this, asking the question and understanding the reason behind it. Software engineers usually pay very much attention to the technology, but product engineers not only pay attention to technology, but they also are interested in the business model. What is the business model? How the company makes money? What are the business processes? What business units come together to fulfill an order? Let's say that you work in an e-commerce company like, I don't know, Iconic, for example. What kind of business units come together, fulfillment, warehouse, they come together to fulfill one order? So you pay attention to those aspects as well. And usually the person who is just a developer interested in fulfilling the requirements, they pick up the requirements from backlog, but product engineer is interested in customer and user behavior as well. That's why the engineers invented A/B testing, to get the real-time feedback of the customer behavior through A/B testing and refine their work. So product engineers are actually rely on the customer behavior and interested on the customer data and customer insight and behavior. Software engineer, as part of our jobs, is that we offer architectural and technical trade-offs. Let's build this way, other than this way, etc. Right? But product engineers actually work with the product managers and product owners and offer feature trade-offs. For example, product owner might say that feature A has more priority. We need to first ship feature A and then feature B. But as an engineering lead, as a senior engineer, which is a product engineer, so you can say that, okay, feature A has more priority, we understand that, but feature A is going to take 6 months for us to build. Maybe we can build feature B, which is going to take less time, ship it to the customers, have a quick win, and move on to the feature A. These are kind of conversation that is good to have. It doesn't mean that it's going to be implemented, definitely, but it's the kind of conversation that you can have with the product manager or product owner and show that you are interested in the product. Software engineers often are engaged in POCs, proof of concept, technical proof of concept. Can we interface this service with that? Can we integrate this with that, and etc. These kind of very technical proof of concept. But product engineers are very into and very expert in doing MVPs, and they are a natural design thinker, which means that they are able to empathize with the customer, prototype quickly, test it with the customer, and then get the feedback and refine their work. So instead of just focusing on technical POCs, can we implement this particular technology? They're also interested in fully fledged MVPs. Software engineers make good technical decisions, obviously, but product engineers also make good financial decisions. As you become more and more senior in a company, you need to care about the financial consequences of your decisions. Let's say that you think that, okay, this CI/CD platform is not performing very well. I'm going to stand up my own. That is not a good decision. Not financially, not from holistic view of the company, because you're going to create tools proliferation across the company if you keep making these kind of decisions. The best way to do is to offer help to the CI/CD platform team, or maybe start some inner sourcing model where you can actually contribute to the platform work, to the CI/CD work, and make it better, rather than standing up your own stuff, your own logging platform, your own monitoring platform, your own way of doing the stuff, because it's financially not sustainable. And the more you get senior, the more you need to take care of the financial consequences of your decisions. Software engineers in the DevOps world, we know that we need to have ownership of the solution that each team, each product team is building. This is a norm, right? But the product engineers needs to have a strong sense of ownership over the end-to-end solution. Let's say that you're working on a product and your team, which is 7 people, you're responsible of building only 15 or 20 microservices. Yes, you're going to build it, you're going to operate those 20 microservices, but you are also passionate about the end-to-end solution of what this whole product is offering to the customer. You understand, you may be not the expert or SMEs on that, the other microservices outside of your team, but you all understand how the whole system comes together and work. Good software engineers make strategic decisions, right? Make long-term strategic decisions that provide competitive advantage for the company. But product engineers not only make strategic decisions, but they are pragmatic. They make decisions, point in time decisions. They might do some tactical work as well because they understand the customer behavior, business needs, and sometimes we need to make tactical decisions. Sometimes we need to build highly coupled solutions. Sometimes we need to have tech debt. These are the things that very senior engineers and product engineers understand, because those are the point in time sound decisions that we need to make in order to pass the regulations or compliance, in order to quickly act to the customer or quickly act to the market. We need to make these decisions, but at the same time, they have this background of strategic thinking that how we can reduce our tech debt, how we can make the solutions and the products that we're building more future-proof. There is two things that product engineers doesn't do, and that's the complaining about point-in-time decisions. When product engineers start to making point-in-time decisions, they understand why certain decision has been made 2 years ago, 3 years ago, because of some particular circumstances that we don't know. So they stop complaining about the old code, they stop complaining about the old decisions that doesn't make sense today. The other thing that product engineer doesn't do, but software engineers sometimes do, is blaming the requirements. Because product engineers are closely involved with creating the requirements, and they are actually curious about the requirements, they don't complain about the requirements, because the requirements is the byproduct of their effort as well as the product manager or product owner's efforts. So there are basically, if I go back to the first slide when I talked about when I became a CTO and I ran my own business, I shifted very naturally, organically shifted to be product engineer, because it was my own business and I had to care about my product. I had to care about my stakeholders. Even though I was a hands-on developer, still we were like 4 or 5 people. We weren't many. So everyone was an engineer. But at the same time, I need to care about financial aspects of my decisions. I need to think about time to market. I need to think about team building. I need to think about all the aspects that requirements and all the aspects that sometimes developers miss and don't really care about. So that was my presentation.
That's good. Thanks, Almira. Thank you so much. Anyone have any questions about product engineer or any other related questions?
Very insightful presentation, Almira. Thanks for that. So, you know how you talked about the product owners and the engineering managers sort of stuff. So, you know, at times it is like, where is the boundary for the product owner and the engineering manager? So I do understand that there is like what and why element of product owner, but even though the engineering lead defining like how part of it, but there is always an overlap between the two. And then, you know, like, so how and when do we define those boundaries? Like, what is like those responsibilities, the clear responsibilities of each lead?
Yeah, look, I don't think there is clear responsibilities, and it's definitely different from company to another company. I am currently working in Telstra, and the way that requirements came down to the engineers is very clear. We are involved in the engineers are closely involved in making product decisions, making requirement suggestion, making trades-off. And basically we see the product owners and the engineers, especially the tech lead or the tech lead of the team, of the feature teams or the product teams, very working closely together on both how, what, and why. All these 3 elements. So I don't think there is a line between, we can have clear lines, not at least not nowadays, but there are companies that you basically, when requirements reaches to the developers, it's too late. Even if there is something that you need to change and you can justify change in terms of requirements, because companies spend 6 months on the requirement, and if you want to repeat the cycle, it's going to be another 6 months to change that requirement. Sometimes it's not possible, but it depends on the company. But usually in the teams that works in a DevOps environment, they work in a long-running teams, they have long-running product teams. Product owner or product manager works very closely with the engineering team, and they basically get very high-level business requirements, very, very high level, and it's breaking down to the requirements with the product owner and the team together.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
That's good. So if anyone have any other questions, please, you can put into the chat. Otherwise, Priya, you have a question?
Yes, I think I'll ask. Thank you so much, Almira, for the journey. And I really like the trajectory path, like how from a software developer to the head of engineering. My question is, being a developer, like you started your journey, so how you shift your mind from developer to the business process and business functions to understanding how, like what was the challenge and how you move and how you have learned that area. So if let's say one person wants to start from a engineer to a product engineer, how he will shift his mind and what is the best way to understand the business process and functions?
The more closely you work with the product owner and architects, because architects also are experts on the business processes, especially the ones that have been in a company for some time. The more closely that an engineer works with the architects and product owners, the better you can start understanding the business processes. Because there is no other way for us, like the product owner, product managers, and the architects are the experts of the business. They understand the business. And the good thing about cross-functional teams is that you get to work closely with those skills and those SMEs. Mm-hmm. And if you join a company, this is what I usually do. If you join a company, you basically start with your own team, right? You start understanding what your team does. You're building 5 microservices with your team. Understand what that 5 microservices do. And then start understanding what the dependencies, your upstream and downstream dependencies look like. And at the same time, you start knowing your stakeholders. The more that you know your stakeholders, whether security stakeholder, risk stakeholder, business stakeholders, you are going to understand the business processes the more. But I don't think there is a recipe for that. You just need to be engaged. You just need to be curious about the business. If you isolate yourself, my only job is to get the story, build it, deploy it. That's my job. Then probably you'll never understand the holistic view of the business. The more you engage, the more you're curious, the more you ask why. Ask why. They need to explain to you. Art needs to explain to you. Product owner needs to explain to you. Ask why, and then probably you will step by step understand the business. And the bigger business, the more complex business, the more time it will take. I can't even say that I understand 40% of Telstra.
That's really good. Thank you.
That's good. So, Almira, what I'll do is I do have set up questions and I'll start. And just to remind everyone, so today, Almira is one of the empowered women because she is doing the leadership role. She has set up her own company. So she comes with a lot of experience where she can talk about challenges, what differently she has done that she is today head of engineering in Telstra. And I know she will be doing a lot more because being a friend, I know a lot of her plans. So Almira, because the whole idea of this group is that I really want other women to feel inspired by your story. So you really did touch few things about how you have changed your role. So would you like to explain what challenges you faced when you were shifting from one role to the other, and what challenges you faced when you came to Australia to find your first job, and what you did, and if you can just give an overview of it.
Yeah, so the challenge is obviously running your own business is completely a different world. So when I was, I started as a developer, obviously, but when I switched over to running my own business, the challenges was enormous. So, and there were very different challenges that you face from moving from one company to another company. But I guess I'll just go back to what Priya mentioned. One of the things that always helped me is that to talk to the people and seek advice. So mentoring has become, I don't know, maybe I'm very late to the game, but mentoring, I think, is a term that became popular in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
But before that was just asking, it was just about asking people that were 1 or 2 steps ahead of you, asking for their guidance, asking them, what do you think? Talking to a family, talking to friends, even if they're not from the same industry. This always helps. The other thing that I would say that helped me to overcome the challenges is that I was always very, very vocal about what I want. So if I'm going to a company, so I think one of the first things that my boss said to Navi when he was interviewing me was that she's very ambitious. So the first thing that I asked is that, what am I going to, what's my career look like? Where do you see me in 2 years? Do you see me as head of in 2 years? If not, so how you can help me to get there? So always was, that at least worked for me, that I have always been very vocal about what I want, where I want to go. And it's always good in every relationship that you know what you want, even in the marriage, you know what you want. It's really good for your partner in your work relationship. When you know what you want, it's really good for your peers. It's really good for yourself. It's really good for your boss. It just sets a clear framework for everyone that how they can help you.
That's good. So then, Almira, any roadblocks which you would like to call out in all your roles, which was common?
When I first came to Australia, I had a boss that he said to me that, know your shit. This is very important. So I think Priya also mentioned this. So really, really know, be really good. So look, I will be honest here. So we do get a lot of female resumes. Right. And I try to interview without an exception, all of them, because I have to.
Yep.
We need more female in engineering companies. Unfortunately, I don't know, maybe that could be because of they can't express themselves quite well. They're lacking confidence. For many, many reasons, it is very hard to actually find a good software engineer, which happen to be female. There are a lot of female engineers in QA and test areas, but when it comes to DevOps, cloud, front-end development, back-end development, that becomes a bit challenging for hiring managers. And knowing your shit is the first thing that I say to everyone, because it helped me a lot. When I came to Australia, the state of technology in Iran was here, and the state of technology in Australia was here. We had no concept of cloud when I came here. I learned cloud in 6 months because I had to. As I said, we were deploying on JBoss in our servers. There was nothing like cloud, and because there was embargo on Iran, we couldn't even use cloud. So that was a lot of learning curve for me, but I basically always repeated to myself, know your shit, and I saw the impact of it, the positive impact of it in my career. The knowing when you go to the interview, when you talk, the fact that when you start an interview and you realize that, I'm better than the person who's interviewing me, that's it.
That's right.
That's it. You can't screw up that meeting, that interview.
That's good. That's really good answer, Almira. And so I just want to know one more thing. You did touch that whenever you get CVs of female and you try to interview, and that's something which I think all the leaders in this group and others also should do. So what else you do to include diversity in your team? Because currently you're heading a team of 30 plus. So what do you do different at you're making sure that diversity is included and it is part of your team?
Yeah, I guess, look, we always try to talk about diversity and inclusion in the leadership meetings, and we do have a KPIs that we need to make sure that we meet those KPIs, but the quality also is very important. So everyone should upskill. We have obligation as a company, as a leadership group, we have obligation to upskill everyone, right? But because we do have underprivileged group, which is and we have female in minority, we put more focus on the female engineers in terms of upskilling them, training them, mentoring them. And I try to block some time in my calendar, which isn't as often as I would like. It's like 2 hours in a week, which isn't much, to anyone who wants to talk to me about in my team. My team is a large team. It's about 120, 130 people in my team, but which unfortunately is the percentage of female engineers in my team isn't as much as I would like to. But I try to have, like, except from aside from one-on-one meetings that we need to have with everyone, try to block some time in my calendar and speak to female engineers in my team if they need to talk to me. But at the same time, I try to push them to outside of their comfort zone, and see if there is an opportunity for them to move to be a technical product owner, or to move to a more leadership role while they also are mentored and they shadow someone else. We always try to look for these kind of opportunities within the organization.
That's good. That's good, Almira. So just then I have one more question, but others feel free to ask question, because this forum is to understand her story and to get inspired. That is the whole idea. So Almira, like as you just mentioned, there are 140 or 30. So that's really very, very big team. Yeah. So how many direct reports you have?
6 only.
Okay, you have direct reports 6. Okay. So how your actually a week look like? So what is a leader's week? So I should just ask that, how a leadership and a week go together?
It is so bad. So basically you don't get head down time to actually do the work. And that's my complaint to my boss, that I don't get head down time to do my work because you pulled in many directions. So if you want to move towards kind of leadership role, you need to kind of come to the peace with the fact that you will not be close to the day-to-day engineering work as you would like.
That's right. Yeah.
I think I'm starting to have fear of missing out. So the other day, my team was talking about something. My team is building platforms, right? So they're talking about some feature on Kubernetes. I'm like, shit, I have no idea what they're talking about. I've never heard about this one. And that was quite upsetting for me, because you feel like this is an ever-changing field, and you have, no matter how much you try to keep up with, you are going to lose some part of it. But at the same time, the good thing is that you do have your technical background, but you also get other skills that, being a full-time engineer, probably you wouldn't get that kind of skills, which includes the leadership skills, financial skills, influencing skills. So I see my job as influencing. This is my only job. Influence, get money from my team to work, influence to provide a good environment for my team work, and that's all I need to do. Otherwise, I don't have any added value.
That's good. So I do have a question, but I'm looking at how many hands. So I think it was Gurleen or Subha who was the first one. So please, maybe Subha, please ask your question. Subha? We can't hear you if you're talking, because I saw you going unmute. Okay, maybe you can type if there is any technical issues. So we'll go to Gurleen.
Yeah, Almira, my question is that when you say that when you try and interview women and unfortunately you're unable to find good women in interview, so I want to ask that what exactly do you look for? As in, how would you build, like, let's say, even when you get into leadership role, how would you build a strong team? Like, do you value that how well they'll fit into the team more than technical skills? Or what exactly do you look for if you want to build a strong team, that is?
Yeah, look, this is a really good question, and it really depends on the role and the level of the role that you're looking for. If I'm looking for junior engineers, the thing that I value most is that are they willing to learn? Because at today, the grads and the junior engineers that we get, they usually the common pattern is that they're very opinionated. And in my opinion, junior engineers should be less opinionated and more willing to learn and open-minded, eager to, jump into the stuff, learn, build something. And this is basically for junior engineers. I'm more focused on their passion and how they express themselves. But as the role becomes more senior and senior, obviously you look into the technical components. Going back to the same thing, do they know their shit? Do they understand? Can they deliver? Can they work in a performance that is expected from a senior engineer? And the other thing is that how they can lead the team, their interpersonal skills, how they can lead the team, how they can engage with the stakeholders, how they can influence, because everyone can influence in their own level. So these are the things that I look for. But for the female interviews that I had so far, I would say the reason that I said that I couldn't find as many females as I would like among those many resumes that we received, that the missing part is the technical component. And you need to make a choice. Either you just take a chance on the person and make sure that there is enough support in the system, in the company, in the team that basically helps to uplift this person, or you have immediate requirement to someone to come in and solve your problem, and that's where you can compromise.
That's good.
That's good, thanks.
Okay, Almira, so we have now Neha and then Poonam, and then we do have one more question on the chat.
Yeah.
So Almira, you have really hit the pain point when you said that like as a leader, as much as like being technical, you always have that soft corner to know more about technology and then what team is working on. If we could get a little more deeper and closer to what they are working on. And as you said it correctly, like, like being a leader, what we do is like influencing people, setting up ways of working. But how do we still keep up to date so that, like not going detailed into technology, but we still understand what the team is working on? How do you manage that bit?
That is very good question. I'll answer this in two parts. One is that surround yourself with very good engineers. And learn from them who are smarter than you, who are more capable than you, because you are moving into the leadership role. You're moving, either it could be influencing leadership role, or it could be people management role, but surround yourself with those architects and engineers that are really tech savvy, and you will learn from the meetings and the conversations that you have from them. And the second thing is that every engineer should have T-shaped skills, right? So if you are a backend developer, microservices developer, you really know how to build a microservice, right? But at the same time, you kind of understand Kubernetes, you understand cloud, so it is your T-shape. You have a broad knowledge of software engineer, and your T is that microservices backend development. That is your niche. When you become leader, your niche moves, right? So you still have that broader knowledge of the software engineering, and that's okay. But your niche moves from backend development to the leadership skills. Your niche moves from how to translate DevOps to CTO. to CEO. Your niche moves from back-end development to basically getting funding for your team. Niche moves to recruitment and team building. And all the stuff that leaders do, and that's okay. You just need to be comfortable with that. If you're not comfortable with that, probably you should revisit moving to the leadership roles and be a staff engineer who is closely involved in the technical work, or individual contributor, which many companies are starting the individual contributor path for very senior engineers who just want to be technical.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks, Almira.
That's good. So we do have a question from Poonam. So Poonam, and then I think I will read out Subha's question.
Hi, thanks, Navi. So, my question is not technical, related to technical. It would be, I would say, it's more of a technical question, and it's somewhere coming from my own experience of being a migrant coming here and settling down. Now, I would say I've settled down. It's coming from that background. Going back to your story and your feedback, where you mentioned that there is a scarcity of right resource, female, scarcity of female leaders. Females have the skill set, but probably it's because of XYZ reason, because of lack of confidence, they haven't done fairly well in their interview, and they are not selected for the role or whatever, opportunity, I would say opportunity in your team. So do you, as a leader, share the feedback with the failed resources? I'll tell you why, because I was at a very senior position back in India. When I came here, I was applying for roles and I was getting a feedback. You stood unfortunate at this point in time. You stood unfortunate. And this was a very standard response that I was getting. Though it's not the state now. I think that I'm in a very nice stature here. But that's not, I'm part of a couple of migrant groups. And that's a very common feel that I got. And I also would like to touch that there are a couple of big organizations which do not want to share the shortcomings with the unsuccessful candidates because of, I would say AWS is one of the organizations. They don't tell you that, where you fell short of. And I don't know the reason behind it, but it may be, there would be some strategic positioning behind that particular. So do you stand different from that, from that particular cohort where you feel that, yes, while following my company, policies and procedure, being vigilant and being somebody who would really want to contribute for the upliftment of the, this particular community where I would want to support my female folks, what different you do when it comes to the feedback sharing to the unsuccessful candidates?
Yeah, look, this is.
I'm sorry for asking a very big question, but I hope
that's okay. But very, very interesting question. And when you took the name of Amazon, I was scared.
I'm so sorry. I should.
No. That's okay. That's why she'll say Microsoft is the next one.
I should not have said name the organization, but it is not about AWS. It is about so many organizations.
I think most of the organization, but I'll allow Almira to answer that. I also have answer, but let Almira focus on that. Yes, Almira.
Yeah.
Look, that is really good point, and that is correct, right? So, and everyone knows, anyone who works in HR, recruitment, talent acquisition, they know that this is not best practice, and the best practice is to let unsuccessful candidate, give them a detail and a view of why they were not successful. So everyone knows that's not the best practice, but unfortunately, not all the organizations follow the procedure. And the procedure, believe it or not, procedure exists in every company that you need to get back with a solid feedback for the unsuccessful candidates. So what we do, I will give my example, I will give our own example. So as part of getting stronger, high quality software engineer, which we started as an initiative in Telstra, we revisited the end-to-end candidate process from the interview, from even before that, from the ad until the first 30 days, and then first 60 days, and then the probation. So we revisited the whole of this process. Obviously, one component of this process, one phase of this process was about unsuccessful candidates. And depending on where these unsuccessful candidates fail, there needs to be customized message. If you fail in video interview, which is very formal, it's not customized, and lots of candidates are rejected in this phase, there will be some customization message sent to the, if you get rejected in the resume, pretty much it needs to be standards, because the volume of the resumes that are received are too high. And if we get your resume and you don't even go through the interview, pretty much in every company, and it's fair to say that it's just going to be standard, because especially if the company has a well-written job ad. So job ad says what we want, it doesn't match with that, so that's that. But if you go through interview phase 1, interview phase 2, you deserve to receive a customized and personalized feedback if you were unsuccessful. So we did that as a company, not personally. I didn't do it personally. I didn't go over the process and did it personally, but we did this as a company, as a company. And the reason is that I can't do it personally, because I'm not involved in 90% of the interviews, and my team actually interview the candidates, and they're the people who are making decisions. Unless there is a system that supports this high volume of or BAU recruitment, I would say that it's impossible for any individual to take it upon themselves and basically give feedback to the personalized feedback to the candidates. It has to be in the company and organization level.
That's true. That's good. That's good answer, Almira. But Poonam, I'll add one more. If you really think you have done second round, third round, I think you have all the rights to reach out to the hiring manager via LinkedIn or via email and look, like, at least try once to get the feedback. And again, as Almira explained very well, it depends on the volume. So, and also a lot of internal processes. Yep. So, but again, networking helps. LinkedIn is for the networking.
Yes.
Reach out. That is always, no one minds. A lot of people reach out to me. I'm sure Almira also, a lot of people reach out to you. So it's very common. So that is where it is. When you're doing the interviews, it is not that someone has to interview you. So you also have all the rights to interview the hiring manager.
Absolutely.
So it's a both ways. Okay. So Almira, we have one more question, and I'm looking at the times. Sorry. Poonam, you were saying something?
But thanks for the answer.
Yeah, okay, sorry. So Subha, she tried talking, but I think because of some technical, she couldn't. So her question was, Almira, that your role is very fancy role. Head of engineering is good, but there is a productivity word also. So what you do? So that is what she wants to know.
Could you repeat?
So what she has said, I'm curious about your role, Almira, Head of Engineering Productivity at Telstra.
Okay, yes, I didn't explain my role at Telstra. So I look after the enablement and acceleration platforms at Telstra. So my team is building the platforms that enables engineers to deliver software. This includes, I have 4 teams. I have 4 teams that are building products and solutions. And I have one team that looks after the adoption organization-wide, because Telstra is a huge company. We have more than 10,000 software engineers. So anything that we build needs adoption in a scale to be useful. So I have one dedicated team for adoption. And those 4 teams, one team is DevSecOps toolchain team. They build all the DevSecOps toolchain, including CI/CD, source code management tools, as well as security tools. And I have Insight engineering team, which builds observability frameworks and tools, as well as the operational dashboards and metrics tool. I have the next team is test and release team. That team is build testing products for non-functional testing, functional testing, test automation, frameworks and products that can basically we enable engineers to do their own testing with the services and the products that we provide to them. And the last team is developer experience team. So developer experience teams focuses on how we can make developers' life easier through automation, through developer portal, through reusable templates, through scaffolding code and stuff like that. So that was very short answer in 2 minutes.
No, that's really good. So I'm looking at the time because we are very much on time. Last call. If anyone have any questions, I'm happy to extend it for a few minutes. Anyone have any questions to Almira? Okay, so I think no. So thanks so much, Almira. And thanks once again to Priya. And thanks to everyone for attending. And it was really nice. Lot of things to understand from Priya's and Almira's experience. And I will be sharing this video once it is downloaded, and I have to make sure it is in the right format. And thanks for joining. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, Navi. Thanks a lot. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you then.
Thanks, everyone.
See you.